I think reinforces what you're basically saying is that the moment has changed.
Yeah, yeah.
And my observation is that scholars writing in the moment are not either not aware of the moment in which they're writing and are willing to acknowledge or to explore the ways in which the context impacts their work, or they're not necessarily being honest about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that works. You know, I'm not saying that the struggle against colonialism, the fight, the nationalist struggles and so forth and so on, I'm not saying that did not influence the scholarship.
Yeah.
I just don't know how scholarship could be influenced in one period and not another.
Not the other. Yeah.
That's my query. Yes.
Thank you very much. For me, I'm a physician, so
oh.
I'm a historian. I'm a surgeon who was making it even worse.
Yeah.
So it's so fascinating.
Wow.
But I live in Africa and I'm a woman. So a lot of things about what people go through, the impact of racism. I live it 2 days a week, 3 days a week when I'm visiting, and that's all I know. Now, I was just listening to what she said, and it just struck me that perhaps in escalating or in encouraging that conversation around the issues she raised, perhaps the lessons in global health, which is my space, and probably because what we do in global health is about life and death. We need to be proactive as at when due and move faster. I co-chair a partnership between University of California, Berkeley, and Ahmadu University Zaria to just look at faculties, looking at global health, looking at contemporary issues that are not theory, that impact heavily on lives. And that has moved us from looking at issues, say, around maternal mortality, child mortality, to really look at girls' education as a crux of the matter. And therefore begin to invest in girls' education as a strategy for improving maternal health. Perhaps, maybe, I don't know how in your sphere, partnership with your contemporaries back in Africa, who are looking at this a little differently and thinking about them differently and hybriding, because their own works remain within the continent.
Yes.
And so therefore, cross-pollinating ideas, just
Yes. I think that's a wonderful observation, and I tried to touch on it briefly in terms of with respect to global Africa, the ways in which experiences tend to comport with each other, which I think is fascinating. And well, you know, these things come and go. In the area in which Carolyn worked, University of Nigeria in Nsukka, there was a time when these things were very, very important. You know, they have buildings named after Pat Moore and so forth and so on, and there was the connectivity was very pronounced. Things have changed. And I understand that. Just shifting from the theoretical and the purely scholarly to the more activist aspect of this, I do think that there are symmetries and there are areas in which what are otherwise disparate or dissociated communities could find common cause and work together. And maybe we'll see that take place. Yes?
Okay, I want to, it's not like I'm taking us back though, but I just want to make a comment about the issue of migration.
Yes.
Because migration has a lot to do with diaspora.
Yes.
Like there's a tendency to look at migration these days as if it's voluntary. But I think we should start thinking about looking at it, because most kinds of migration, whether it was it's more or less forced, although it may not be physical.
Yes.
It's like leaving something, your comfort zone, and going to the unknown.
Mm.
So even if it's professional migration or all that, it's more like forced. So when we are creating or producing knowledge about migration, especially in diaspora studies, I think these issues should be put into place. Like if we look at the issue of Nigeria in the 80s and 90s during the anti-SARC riots and the rest, we lost a lot of our idealists and our scholars in the university to most of the universities in the Western world. So can we say such a migration is voluntary when we're looking at immigration laws and all that? Although some voluntarily packed up their bags and left the country to some other places, but it was still forced because they were leaving a known environment to an unknown, exposing themselves to some certain kinds of vulnerability. So I think when we're talking about migration and all this, we should start thinking around the fact that it is not always voluntary. In most cases, it is forced. Even if somebody is not putting guns to your head or you are violently removed from your family, so it's still the same ideas.
I think that's a very interesting idea and observation, and one that may indeed argue for more complementarity than we understand. Sir.
Thank you for the talk.
Yes.
With these questions about...
I've seen you before.
I used to be at NYU in the international division.
Okay.
We had some interaction.
Okay, very good, okay.
It's good to see you.
Okay, good. Yes. As long as you're not with the CIA, following you around. Okay, go ahead.
So these questions of bringing the illusion of perspectives from the past that don't seem to be a part of the dialogue anymore. Questions of language violence, power, and history. I wonder whether you've offered a framework for reinfocusing that in the explicit relationship you drew between diaspora and imagined communities. And the original sort of the genesis of that concept was more spatially and temporally focused, and was sort of focused on print media and the generation of imagination of communities not in direct contact with each other through some sort of mechanism. And I'm wondering whether that idea, it seems, imagined communities applied to diaspora requires an empirical project. Are these communities, in fact, participating? In what ways did they participate in a common imagination? That's an empirical question, and it brings up historical issues about the formation of communities, etc. And then there's the question of the mechanism of imagination itself, of dissemination of these ideas through language. Dissemination, and then the violence of and to language, and the narrative dissemination of an idea of community, and then the counter-narratives and the violence done to those, and the dialogic relationship with colonialism itself, and with sound, and with music, and with movement, etc. All the ways in which communities might imagine their participation. So I wonder whether that you're framing it that way, in fact, invites a framing of a conference or whatever to talk about those things.
I've tried to, so thank you for that intervention. I've tried to allude to a different way of framing the relationship between these communities, right? In these, kind of imagined, spatial relations, and so I'm not asking you, I'm not saying that you should read this, but I kind of try to lay out some of these ideas in the introduction to Diasporic Africa. Yeah, so I kind of take some of this on. But in your comments / question is embedded, the seeds for ways in which to understand these kinds of relations, because Certainly at the political level with Pan-Africanism and so forth,